Mr. Archibald Fortescue was, by all accounts, the most punctual man in London. Except on Tuesdays. On Tuesdays, he swore off time. It was an old tradition, born of grief and stubbornness. The story was that Archibald had once loved a pianist who died precisely at 3:17 p.m. on a Tuesday in 1823. Since then, every Tuesday, Archibald removed all clocks from his person, covered the grandfather one in the hall, and refused to acknowledge the passage of time. This was a rather complicated stance for a clockmaker, yet his reputation had only grown. Fortescue's timepieces, nestled in a fog-bound alley behind the Royal Opera House, was the shop where dukes and debtors alike entrusted their chronometers. And Archibald himself, a tall, slender man with eyebrows like furious commas, was a legend among horologists. He could, it was said, hear a faulty balance wheel from 3 rooms away. He once fixed the Queen's personal carriage clock blindfolded, though it was later revealed he'd already fixed it the week prior and was simply showing off. But despite his genius and oddities, Archibald was, in his own quiet way, lonely, until the arrival of Miss Clementine Thistlewaite. Clementine versus Time. Miss Thistlewaite entered Fortescue's shop like a cannonball, wrapped in a crinoline. She was 26, unapologetically unmarried, and wore a hat that suggested either madness or extreme confidence. "I have a proposition," she said. Before the bell had finished chiming, Archibald, startled from the delicate innards of a French marine chronometer, peered at her over his spectacles. "No time for tea," she added. "Good. Because I despise it. I'm here on business." She placed a gleaming contraption on the counter. It resembled a pocket watch that had grown up in a foundry and taken fencing lessons. "It's a chronostenograph," she explained, "designed to record conversations while keeping time to within 1/10 of a second. I invented it. It doesn't work. Make it work." Archibald regarded her. "Who are you?" "Clementine Thistlewaite. I write under a pseudonym for the Morning Clarion, the women's science column, mostly ignored, except when I discuss planetary motion in the context of social mobility." "And why bring this to me?" "Because every other man I've asked has laughed, fainted, or tried to marry me." Archibald blinked. Then he chuckled, a brief, unexpected sound like a pocket watch sign. "You're hired," he said. "An invention of consequence." They worked together in unusual harmony. Clementine brought bold ideas and mechanical ambition. Archibald supplied precision, skepticism, and biscuits. By autumn, the chronostenograph clicked, word, and transcribed scandalous conversations with unnerving accuracy. Then came the exhibition. Queen Victoria herself had announced a prize for technological innovations of significant social promise. Clementine, with typical flourish, submitted the device under both their names. Archibald, to his horror, found himself dragged into public admiration. Worse, on a Tuesday. "Time," Clementine whispered to him as they stood before Prince Albert, "isn't just for mourning. It's for making history." He looked at her, her defiant chin, her ink-stained gloves, the sparks of intellect in her eyes. Perhaps, he thought, she was right. They won, and promptly lost everything. Tick, tock, traitor. It began with the transcript of a private conversation between a member of Parliament and his mistress, accidentally left running in a coat pocket. The scandal reached Parliament. Debates erupted. The public split into camps, one praising transparency, the other calling it mechanical espionage. Clementine and Archibald were summoned for questioning. A burly MP demanded, "Do your devices listen to people?" Clementine answered, "Only if you carry them into brothels." The device was banned. Fortescue's shop vandalized. Clementine's column shut down. On the same day, Archibald received a letter from Buckingham Palace. In gratitude for his unfortunate service, he was to receive a pension, on the condition he never publicly associate with Miss Thistlewaite again. "I'll refuse," he told her. "No," she said softly. "Take it. Fix clocks. Stay hidden. And you, I'll keep breaking them." They parted on Waterloo Bridge, where time and tide waited for no one, except, perhaps, an unpunctual genius and a woman who outran clocks. The clockmaker's paradox. Years passed. In 1861, Archibald Fortescue died in his shop, mid-repair, with a half-assembled marine chronometer in his hands and a small newspaper clipping pinned above his workbench. It was an editorial from an obscure Parisian journal, praising a British woman whose devices now aid the revolutions of science, justice, and resistance across Europe. The author's name was a pseudonym. In his will, Archibald left behind no heirs, only a final invention, a clock with no hands, that chimed not the hour, but names. Each Tuesday, at precisely 3:17 p.m., it whispered, "Clementine." The measure of time. Long after steam gave way to electricity, and the chronostenograph was rediscovered in a Prague attic, scholars puzzled over its design. She wasn't trying to record time, said one historian, but prove it could be reclaimed. In a quiet museum in South London, the clock without hands still sits behind glass. Visitors often ask what it's for. The guide always smiles and says, "It reminds us time is a construct." But love, invention, and rebellion, those are real. And somewhere, wherever the revolutionary spirits go, Clementine Thistlewaite is still chasing time and outrunning it.